Welcome back to the Viata International Academy. It's Teacher Carl, and in today's lesson we're talking about your role model. Now some of you might not know what a role model is, so let's just give a quick definition. A role model is a person that is regarded by others as setting a good or a bad example. And as I've said, we could have good role models or we could have bad role models. Now, role models could come in the form of a teacher, maybe a celebrity, or even a family member. If we're talking about good role models, we're talking about people who display good attributes and people that you look up to and would like to be like because of their excellent behavioural displays. So let's have a look at some of the language that we might use if we're talking about our role models. So we may say that we admire somebody. Somebody who we look up to is also somebody who we admire. It shows that their behaviour has been excellent, exemplary, or they just do the things that you would like to do. We may say that somebody sets a good example, or if they're a bad role model, they're going to set a bad example. And finally, we may say that somebody is a good influence, or we may say that they're a bad influence. Depending on whether they're good or bad will obviously depend on whether they're a good role model or a bad role model. So how would this play out in a conversation? Well, it might go a little something like this. If I was talking about a good role model, I might say something like, I really look up to Vero. She is someone I admire because she sets a good standard, an example for the rest of the team. If I was talking about a good example. However, if I'm talking about a bad example, a bad role model, I might talk about Fabian. He is not a person I look up to or admire. He sets a bad example for the rest of the team, and he can be quite a bad influence on occasions. So usually, if you wanted to specifically talk about your role model, this is the type of language you will use. However, it produces quite closed opportunities for conversation. So usually what will happen is once you've made an explanation about why they are good or why they are a bad role model, usually the person you're conversing with will ask for more detail. Why are they a bad example? Why are they a good influence? So in this case, you're going to need to use the good old personality adjectives. Now, as ever, I've got them in good for your good role model and anything bad for your bad role model. So I've selected just a few. There are lots and lots of adjectives that you could use when describing your role model. So let's start with the good. You may describe your role model as unselfish, generous. Maybe they're modest or humble. It's always good when you have a trustworthy role model. And I particularly like somebody who is easygoing. Honesty is always the best key, and people who are hardworking are usually seen as good role models. Well, what about bad role models? Well, you may describe them as selfish, greedy, whether it be with food or with money. You may describe them as arrogant, untrustworthy. They may be bad-tempered or moody. They could be dishonest, and they might be lazy. So using all of these personality adjectives and some of these phrases here, you can explain to people who you have as a good role model or who you think is a bad role model. So that concludes our quick look at describing and talking about your role model. If you have any comments, leave them in the section below. I look forward to reading them, and I will see you in the next class.